Hello and welcome to this very special edition of Movie News here at MBA.
Yes.
Myself and John are going to be breaking down our top 10 films of 2020. Since it's the last day of the year, we felt it was apt that we did this, John, and we're going to do it from 10 through to 1, which one being our favourite film of 2020.
Stephen, perhaps you should frame this by saying some of these movies were officially 2019 movies, but we didn't get them until 2020 because we are the backwater black sheep country of the world. So that's some of these movies we didn't see to this year.
That's why we are saying it is our top 10 films of 2020. Maybe not yours, wherever you may be, but certainly here in the UK.
Certainly glad they're ours.
These are the films that were released in this country then, and we're going to start, John, at number 10, and it is The Hunt, and it was directed by Craig Zobel and stars the likes of Betty Gilpin. Hilary Swank is in there as well, and Ike Barinholtz. Now, John,
I love it.
It's funny because this was one of the very last films we saw in the cinema before lockdown.
Yes.
And it
was the last?
It took me by surprise how good this film was. It was almost like, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way, it was almost like watching sort of those sequences you get in video games, but in a good way.
Yeah, very violent.
But what was your thoughts on this film, John? If your mind can stretch back to February or March or whenever it was it came out.
Stockman says this, and he's absolutely true. He says he's consumed a lot of movies on streaming services this year, but they don't have that lasting impact because he's seen them on the streaming service in the house. But when you see a movie in a theatre, the senses are dulled. The senses are heightened, I should say. All the outside noises and stuff are dulled, so you're more likely to remember movies like this. So I remember it very well. I don't actually know who Craig Zobel is, who directed it. I can't sit here and lie and say I do. But Betty Gilpin was absolutely manic in this movie. I can only say that she looked and felt like a character which had it was on the spectrum, had a form of Asperger's or autism or something, because she was a strange character. Something was off about her. She was absolutely batshit crazy. But she was a necessary character in this movie because up until the point where we are first introduced to her, these sort of rich aristocratic figures who are hunting the Plevingtons for their sport, they were having it all their own way. But when she's introduced and she first meets these two old people in the sort of gas station or whatever you want to call it,
that's right,
she flips it, and then from that moment on things don't go their way. She absolutely wrecks them up until she meets Hilary Swank's Athena at the end of the movie. So Betty Gilpin, absolute standout performer for me from what I remember of the movie, and that end sequence between Crystal and Athena was akin to what Tarantino done in Kill Bill with Beatrix
Kiddo, and obviously Bill. It was building up to that, John. That's what I liked about this film. Also, they did a Scream with obviously a well-known face, Emma Roberts. I think she lasted maybe about 1 minute in the film before she was. I like the Ethan Suplee character. Shut the up, Gary.
Because they introduce some big hitting actors and killed them off in the first 10 minutes. E.K. Barinholtz was the other one.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
famous guy from Suicide Squad. He played the sort of shithead guard, I'm sure. I'm pretty sure he was in Suicide Squad. So he's a great actor, but they offed him very quickly. It was very much Betty Gilpin's movie, her and Hilary Swank.
Definitely.
So Stephen, it's a great movie that deserves to be in our top 10. It was the last one, as you say, we've seen before lockdown.
Yeah.
Last one I got to experience before Tenet in a theatre.
Yeah.
And I thoroughly enjoyed it, and it got a lot of shit, a lot of controversy from some lunatics over in
There was
America.
A delay in it, wasn't there?
Because of the gun crime, there was shootings happening, and they thought this would inspire people, but it's movies.
No.
It's escapism, unless you're a Fruit Loop.
It was a good action horror thriller, as they call it, John. But yeah, you're absolutely right. That's why it's
schizophrenia, a really bad form, and you actually want to go and act out violence, you see, then that's the only way it's going to happen.
Exactly. And that's why
slag off people with mental health problems. Everyone's got mental health problems.
That's it. But that's why it's at our number 10. But I'm going to move on, John, to our number 9, Sonic the Hedgehog. This was another delayed film because of technical issues with the look of the character. We talked about it on our movie news show for months prior to its release, John. This was directed by Jeff Fowler and stars Ben Schwartz, obviously as voicing Sonic the Hedgehog. James Marsden in there, I thought he was excellent, and Jim Carrey in there as well. Josh Miller is one of obviously the writers, along with Pat Casey. John, James Marsden, I know he's not everyone's cup of tea in certain films, but in this, I really loved his character. I thought he was the character that sort of brought the sort of human element to the film, because it certainly couldn't be Sonic the Hedgehog. And Jim Carrey as well was back with a vengeance. Jim has been through a lot over the last 5-6 years. When he was on screen in the likes of Kick-Ass 2, which he was probably the best thing in the film, but it was a bad film, let's be honest. Dumb and Dumber 2 didn't really live up to the expectations either, and his performance as Lloyd Christmas was probably tired and forced as well. This was him back the way we remember him, as an Ace Ventura type, that sort of era. Certainly had that element of humour to it as well, that sort of larger than life physical comedy that he used to do, back 20 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely, Stephen. Look, he was fantastic. And even from the very first trailers we got, the controversy that obviously erupted over the visuals of Sonic, the human teeth, the horribly oversaturated green eyes, strange looking little guy, not like we grew up playing with in the great Sega games.
No.
Even through all of that, Jim Carrey's performance came through. It shone through, I should say, because it was like harkening back to the 1990s, as you did say, with the Ace Ventura, the Lloyd Christmas. I'm pretty sure that's what his name is. I was about to say Larry, but I think that's actually that's the other. That's dumber. And that's dumb. Sorry, because he's dumber without doubt. So it was harkening back to that. It was a great performance, a very energetic, ham-acted performance, kind of ham-acted, good ham, if I can speak, acted performance that only Jim Carrey could do. If anyone else tried to do it, you would be turned off and you'd be like, nope. Definitely. But it was perfect, Stephen, because this is a 90s video game, 80s video game, whenever it was buffed, and he was the antagonist in the game, so it had to be acted, and it could only really be a guy like Jim Carrey. He hit the ball out the park for me. James Marsden, I can't even speak tonight, it's getting late, was fantastic too, as you did say, the connective sort of element to the audience, from Sonic to the audience to everyone else in the movie. He was great, he was funny, he's back and forth with Rob Robotnik. Well, some of the standout moments for me. Ben Schwartz as well as Sonic, good, really good voice acting performance. We've seen a couple this year. The Pokemon Detective Pikachu performance from Ryan Reynolds and Schwartz, they were the two standout voice acting performances for me this year. Really surprised me, this movie. A video game adaptation. Really expected it to flippity floppity flop. It didn't. No. It's a sort of renaissance. It's sparked a franchise now.
Well, it has.
I'm excited to see what Jeff Fowler brings. And we have to say, Jeff Fowler, for having the balls to go back and rework the visuals. Listen to the feedback of the fan base.
Take
not
note,
slap it down and be arrogant like a Tim Miller.
Yeah.
He listened and it duly delivered because it was a success, financially and critically. And
because of that, they're making a sequel. And of course, the rivals in the video game market, Nintendo, have took notice and they're already talking about a Super Mario film. So it's all good for us. But we're going to move on, John, to our next film. Number 8. It's The Invisible Man. I hope I'm getting that right. It's number 8.
Yes.
And it's Leigh Whannell, who also wrote this and did the screenplay for it. And stars Elizabeth Moss, Oliver Jackson, Cohen, and Harriet Dyer. A very small cast, John. We talked about this when we obviously watched the film. This came out on the 28th of February 2020 over here in the UK. 7.1 out of 10. Elizabeth Moss for me was outstanding in this film. She's basically everything she's been in over the last 5 or 6 so years. She just knocks the ball out the park. Such a range from the actor, and the visuals as well, John. I loved the way this was shot. I loved the way that that the camera would pan around even when there was nothing. It was really just for the audience's benefit. It was really just to put us on edge. We didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know what to expect, and that was all the way it was shot. I really liked this film for its sort of its pacing as well.
Technical aspect too.
Yeah, the technical aspect as well.
Some of the fight sequences.
It was amazing.
Kitchen,
yeah, the corridor scene.
Around.
Remember the corridor scene as well when he was taking all the guards out. Amazing.
That was the best scene in the movie for me because he really erupted. This guy was almost like a psychological presence throughout the movie up to that point. You were looking for him, well I was, in corners and in doorways. You're like, where is this guy? He was restraining himself. That was when he really exploded. He had the brief fight, the tussle with the Elizabeth Moss character, but that corridor scene in the sort of psychiatric unit, that was the standout moment for me. It was like a Terminator. It was like Robert Patrick's Terminator, wrecking the living shit out of everything in his path. Stephen, you're right about Elizabeth Moss as well. You look back at her last 3-4 years. She starred in Robert Redford's very last movie as an actor, The Old Man and the Gun. She starred in the likes of The Kitchen, which was a not so great movie, but she was decent in it. The sort of Hell's Kitchen.
The Hell's Kitchen, yeah.
The mobster's wife's take over.
Yeah.
She was in Us. She was in Invisible Man, and she was brilliant in Invisible Man, as you did say, for all the reasons she said.
Is it The Handmaid's Tale as well?
She does, yeah. She's hitting the ball out of the park recently, and it was her emotional performance that really carried this movie. She gave us the whole human lexicon of emotions in this movie. She was an abuse victim, traumatised, PTSD, then she was grieving for the loss of I think it was her sister who had a throat slit, gruesome scene.
Yeah.
And then she had moments of euphoria. Ultimately, she triumphs, and I think she turns into the villain at the end as well. I think if we get another Invisible movie, I think it'll be her. It'll be the
Invisible
villain.
Woman.
She slits his throat in cold blood and walks away smirking. So I think she's damaged goods. I love the movie though. I'm not going to predict what happens next. I thought it was really a surprise hit. Lee Warner was great. He's doing more Blumhouse movies.
Yeah.
It was another surprise hit for Blumhouse, man. Tiny budget, $8 million. One of the biggest, best performing box office movies of 2020, albeit not a lot of competition.
No, definitely not. But number 7, John, is The Devil All the Time. This film, we did the reaction for it when the trailer dropped, 7.1 out of 10. This came out on 16th of September 2020 here in the UK. It was Netflix, wasn't it, that released it? Directed by Antonio Campos, who was one of the writers along with Paulo Campos, I assume it's a relative, and stars, it's a great cast, John, but just a few of them. Donald Ray Pollock, Bill Skarsgård's in there, Tom Holland, Michael Banks, Rupetta, Kristen Griffiths, Sebastian Stan, Jason Clarke, Robert Pattinson. Jeez, it's such an amazing cast, John. Yep. And I'm embarrassed to say I've not even seen this film yet.
Oh, you have to.
The reason it's in here is because you have spoke very highly of it. You can quote a lot of the lines from Robert Pattinson as well.
It had quite an effect on me, Stephen. Let's just say. Yeah. It's just a beautiful movie, based on a novel. I've not read the novel. By all accounts, the novel's very, very good as well, though. Sort of damaged young guy growing up. His father was a sort of PTSD suffering guy he was a war veteran. He loses his mother, his wife. Bill Skarsgård plays the husband figure, the father figure. They lose the wife to cancer. There's the religious stuff going on in here. There's preachers. Yeah. It's sort of satirically looking at that. It's looking at violence and just this southern state. I don't know where it's set, but it's just a great, great movie. And Tom Holland, again, is absolutely fantastic as Arvin in it. The young guy, the journey this guy goes through, he's nearly getting killed. He's losing loved ones. There's all sorts of shenanigans. There's abuse going on in here. Bill Skarsgård's briefly in it at the start. It's absolutely tremendous as well. I had a really damaged guy. He crucifies the pet dog to try and save the wife, the mother, from cancer. It doesn't work. Ends up killing himself there as well, or dying there. So there's lots of tragedy in here. And then you Sebastian Stan as well. He's great in it. Jason Clarke's an absolute loon ball in it. He's carving people up. He's hitchhiking, taking hitchhikers with his wife, carving them up and taking photographs of them. But look, man, these stand out for me. Harry Melling of Harry Potter fame, brilliant as the first preacher. Have you washed in the soul cleansing blood of a lamb? I know it, Stephen. Pattinson, though, the delusion speech. I've watched this speech about 300 times. Delusion, blaspheming the Lord in your mind and in your heart, and speaking about Eve and Noah drunk naked in the desert. Just an amazing speech. And how can I be a daddy when all we done was spend time with the Lord? There's just some great performances in there. Patterson's a wronging. He's abusing young girls, and he's so delusional. And he's giving a sermon about delusion. It's a brilliant movie. You need to watch it.
Yeah,
fantastic.
Well, John, I'll be off for 4 days.
It's a dark movie
over the new year. So I was going to try and watch it last night. I've got no excuses. I should have seen this film by now. And you have been speaking very highly of it. So I really should take a leaf out of my own book. I normally have to force feed you into watching Die Hard films, etc. So I really need to do the same back. So we're going to move on, John, to number 6 this week. It's The Five Bloods this week. Why am I saying this week? Is it 5? I think it's 6. I don't know why I said this week. It's always going to be number 6 in our top 10 of 2020, I'm thinking we're doing the blog rundown to our box office. That's what it is. The Five Bloods, John. We both saw this on Netflix on its release back in June. Directed by Spike Lee, of course, the great Spike Lee. Written by Danny Bilson and Paul DeMaio. Starring Delroy Lindo, who we are predicting should be up for an Academy Award for his performance.
If it's a disgrace.
Jonathan Majors, Clark Peters in there, and of course, John, the late great Chadwick Boseman.
Yeah.
Jean Reno's in there as well. He's in an important role in it, but he's very brief in it as well. As is Chadwick Boseman. Not in it a lot, but the scenes he is in are very, very powerful.
Yes.
Storm and Norman, as I recall, John. This film for me was so authentic as well, and I liked the way that they used the same actors for the young scenes as well, the sort of stuff set, in the late 60s, early 70s. Instead of doing a recasting or playing younger versions or de-aging, I thought when I heard this it would take me out of the picture, them acting up alongside Chadwick Boseman, but it didn't. That says a lot about Chadwick Boseman's performance as well, how mature of an actor he is to work alongside the likes of Delroy Lindo, and being level pegging, I would say. If Chadwick Boseman was in this film a lot more, I would be saying he would be up for a posthumous Academy Award. But Delroy Lindo, for me, all these range of emotions in the film, he went from being a very content sort of just getting the boys back together again to this tragic figure, really.
Stephen, man, it's classic Spike Lee. The guy just knows how to craft a movie, a powerful story. Took it originally supposed to be a platoon of white guys in Vietnam with a solitary black soldier. They rejigged the story, made it an all black cast. And absolutely tremendous the way it's written, the way it weaves this story about this Paul guy. He's going on a journey to reconnect with his old friends. He actually wants to get back though and really reconnect with his lost friend in the Chadwick Boseman character, Storm and Norman. And the way it slowly unravels and reveals what happened, why he's so grief-stricken, why this old foe, or old friend I should say, not foe, is coming to him in his dreams. It's just beautiful, the way that reveal at the end, what he done, why he's so stricken with grief, and the way that he's almost angelic. He's almost like a Jesus Messiah figure. I forgive you. That was beautiful, man, and just an amazing performance from Delroy, speaking to the camera. Clearly a guy absolutely destroyed by post-traumatic stress, by grief, by everything. Just a beautiful, and obviously he's the macho sort of masculine figure. He doesn't want to show his emotions, doesn't want to admit that he's grieving,
especially in front of his son.
Yeah, exactly. And Jonathan Majors, that dynamic between him and Delroy Lindo, he's obviously going to be playing
John.
King
Obviously
the
exactly. Obviously the tragic news of Chadwick Boseman's passing as well, a few months after this film's release, put another spin on it as well. For me anyway. I don't know about yourself.
Stephen, look, I was speaking about him today. I can't believe the guy's gone. I still cannot believe he's gone. 42, 43 years old, so young. Incredible he's not here anymore. And obviously he's got one last movie, Ma Rainey something. It's about a jazz band. Apparently he's sublime in that as well. His very last movie. But this is the one that I've not seen that yet. So this is what I really associate with him now. Obviously Black Panther, I'm always going to associate that with 42 and all of the other movies that he'd done. But he was really, really good. Not in it a lot. No. But when he was in it, powerful speeches. And again, little historical things dropping in as well about martyred sort of black people from the past who gave up their lives. I think the first person to be killed in the United States after it formed was a black man. They flash up little images, little story.
John, there's a lot of graphic images in this, which shocked me as well. But it was one of those films I think needed that. It really had to.
And great humour as well in moments.
Well, it did, yeah. I mean, it had a whole range of emotions, and obviously through those actors, I think they executed it well. It's certainly a film. I've not went back to see it since. It's one of those films that kind of stays with you for quite a while after you've watched it. And that's down to performance and down to writing as well. But
Delroy better win Best Actor.
I think he will, John. I think we're talking here, on the last day of the year, and I think if we do get this right, we can maybe clip this. If it does happen, so we'll have to wait and see. But
I said 1917 would win Best Picture last year.
Yeah,
it nearly did.
It nearly did.
The momentum, but we can't sort of deny the movie that did.
No, we can't, John.
We'll speak about that shortly.
We will. I definitely will. Number 5 is The Lighthouse. I was about to say this week again, and you really need to shake that off. But The Lighthouse, John. Robert Eggers, who wrote this with Max Eggers. massive cast of 3 people and a seagull. Robert Pattinson,
Seagull, oh yes.
Willem Dafoe.
Oh.
7.5 out of 10. John,
Star and roll, that seagull.
31st of January 2020. Now, who would have thought the year would pan out the way it did for the UK?
A millennia
It does,
ago.
you know.
We were doing a list,
Yeah.
and I completely forgot these movies came out in 2020 over here.
Yeah.
And I looked through and I'm like, Jesus
Yep.
Christ.
I know.
It feels like another decade.
Because it was maybe about 18 months to maybe 20 months ago we did the first reaction for the trailer.
What a trailer.
We did 2, didn't we?
Yeah.
And they were fantastic. But John, we all know about the lobster speech.
You like me lobster, Winslow, in a way, don't you? Say it.
It's
You like me
amazing.
lobster. Damn ye, Winslow! Hark! With Slytherin's tentacle tail.
That's amazing.
Okay, have it your way.
It's amazing how much you remember from that, John.
Oh.
This is under drama, fantasy, horror on IMDb. I would put humour in there as well. I wouldn't say it's comedy, but there is so many.
Definitely is a comedy.
I laughed at that scene that you just described there, John, and I laughed at the seagull scene as well. Probably shouldn't be laughing at that, but it was just
That's me.
such a. I thought this film would be a lot more claustrophobic than it was because it's set in the one, but it wasn't. And I think maybe the black and white element to it maybe helped that. I'm not sure.
Stephen, the aspect ratio as well, it kind of did.
That's
It
right.
made it claustrophobic, but
Yeah.
it didn't, because the performances, you were so invested in the actual performances.
Yeah, that's it.
It almost connected you. It made you feel like you were a part of this sort of strange dynamic between these two guys. But look, that seagull scene, that I loved it because that is me. That's the way I get. I get so angry about certain situations with mostly inanimate objects, and I just batter them about. So
Yeah.
that was
John,
living vicariously
I
through
hear you.
Robert Pattinson.
Yeah.
So Stephen Pattinson's amazing in this movie.
John,
man.
my
It's
Henry
brilliant.
Hoover hasn't got a little smile on his face. Not what after I've done to him.
Well, he's a seagull.
Yep.
But Stephen Defoe is the standout as Thomas Wake. What a performance. It's just right up this guy's street. And just an amazing performance, but just the way they sort of looked at or skewed these performances, the way that they enveloped themselves in the characters, that's the way I'll sort of frame the conversation. Pattinson done it completely differently. He, I think, barely rehearsed, and I think William Dafoe was a stickler for continuously rehearsing. And so they took it from 2 different perspectives, but the way they brought it together, it really worked, because these were 2 different guys stuck on an island.
Yeah.
One was a stickler for the traditions and the old school sort of
He was a needler as well.
lighthouse keeping, yep.
Yeah.
And the way that it just enveloped you in madness, it was almost like how I imagined madness to be. The way that you were losing track of days and time, the characters were losing track. It just went into absolute chaos at
There's
the
only
end.
one thing that really we knew for sure, John. This wasn't going to end well.
No.
For either character. We knew that. You sensed that really from maybe about the first 10-15 minutes of the film. This is not going to go well.
No.
It's just going to descend, and it did.
Steve, just classic Eggers. He
Yeah.
done The Witch, and it's just he knows how to create these wacky, claustrophobic sort of old school period piece movies, and it just worked, man. And this worked, and it was a comedy. I absolutely believe it was. I watched Pattinson doing an interview and a press junket for it, and people were saying to him, I laughed. I don't know if I was supposed to, and he says it is. It's a borderline comedy as well. So
I would agree.
surreal.
Number 4, John, and it has got comedy elements in it, certainly from the trailers that we first watched, but a lot of drama in there, John, a lot of emotion as well. Jojo Rabbit, that is. And this is just making it into our top 10 because it came out here in the 1st of January 2020, so almost a year to the day since it was released in the UK, John. 7.9 out of 10 on IMDb. This was directed by the great Taika Waititi, who is a master of making you cry one moment and then laugh the next and then cry again. It's one of those films. Roman Griffin Davis, Tamazin McKenzie and Scarlett Johansson, just a few of the names that star in this film. Obviously your man Sam Rockwell as well, and Rebel Wilson as well. Alfie Allen, I forgot about him. Such a great cast, John. We saw the trailers for this. We thought it was going to be some wacky out and out comedy, ignoring the subject matter, which had a bit of controversy from the US of all places.
Because they don't understand satire.
That's it, John. But this is a film that I've seen. I think I've seen it maybe 2 more times since we did go and see this film. But it's such a great film. It's well written and it's a lot of heart as well.
Stephen, it's great. It's classic Taika. As you say, knows how to blend multiple genres, multiple emotions into his movie. And he just frames the satire and the story in such a way where it's just beautiful. You connect with this little guy. You shouldn't, because he's a little shithead with bigoted views. But the way that relationship with Jojo and Elsa sort of blossoms out, and his ignorance and the indoctrination of the Third Reich sort of ekes out of his head. It's just a beautiful, beautiful story. And obviously Scarlett Johansson is Rosie in it. She's playing two parental figures, because the father, I think, perhaps died in war. I think he was a soldier. So that relationship dynamic, the actual shoes continually being in shot, and then that moment, that's a tragic scene.
Yeah.
The music as well, we've got multiple different German sort of classic songs. Mama by Roy Orbison sticks in my head. The little day that Jojo has with his mother, set up before she actually dies. And just that character as well, Rosie. She was a rebel with it. Well, she was a rebel with a cause. She died for her beliefs.
Yeah,
that was a rare thing in Germany in the actual war. And then just Taika being a Polynesian, is that what you call it? A Polynesian Jew himself. He understands what happened with the Jews in World War II, and he just, the way he goes to actual places which were affected by the Holocaust and paints this story. It's just a beautiful, beautiful story, but there is laughter in there as well.
There is, John. Sam Rockwell's character.
Of, Heil Hitler's in a scene ever filmed with Steve Merchant.
Yeah, I saw the making of that as well. We'll talk about Merchant in a moment, John, but Sam Rockwell's redemptive character as well, right at the very end as well, was very emotional.
We even spoke about Taika Waititi's Adolf Hitler as well, the imaginary friend.
No, I mean...
got a lot of controversy.
Yeah.
It was beautiful because he painted this character through the perspective of a little 8-year-old kid, and he was wacky, he was doing things that weren't right. But it was a brilliant way to screw a great little novel.
Steve Merchant for me surprised me the most in this film, how dark he was. I felt this is a guy that we know from Extras, The Office for one episode, but mostly from Extras and side characters, comedic characters, and other.
Big Bang. The janitor, wasn't he, in The Office?
Yeah, Big Bang Theory appeared a few times, and it was always sort of that sort of range of comedy that he was most comfortable in. We've seen his stand up as well. Obviously, he's podcasting with Ricky Gervais, but in this, he was just a dark figure, I felt.
Yeah.
It was
an SS.
It was just that way Christoph Waltz is in Inglourious Bastards. I wouldn't say he's as intense as that, but there's something about him that he's got that same sort of instinct about him that he knows. He knows, but I thought it was great.
Tommaso McKenzie as well. Great. Stephen, the two standout performers, three standout performers for me: Roman Griffin Davis, Tommaso McKenzie, and the little friend, Archie Yates.
Yeah.
Brilliant, a little bespectacled guy.
That's right,
Really great young cast. Great story, I loved it. Absolutely one of my standouts.
Yeah, I'll be watching it again. Now we're talking about it. Number 3, John, 1917. This came out on the 10th of January. A good month, actually, for films here in the UK. 8.3 out of 10. This is obviously the one you predicted would win Best Picture at the Academy Awards.
It was amazing, man.
Yeah, and this was directed by Sam Mendes, who obviously wrote it as well, along with Christy Wilson Cairns, and stars the likes of Dean Charles, Chapman, George Mackay, amazing in this film, Daniel Meza, another large cast, John. We see a few of them at the very end of the film, big names, surprises in there, which I suppose we can talk about if you want. But
Richard Madden's
very
brief but brilliant.
And what's his face as well? Can't remember his name.
Colin Firth, we've got
Colin Firth. That's
Andrew
it.
Scott's great.
Yeah,
really good. Is a little lieutenant guy in the trenches.
Benedict Cumberbatch in this.
He is. He plays the corporal or something.
Yeah.
Or major.
It's amazing the amount of but obviously there's that one shot that people always remember as well, running along the sort of side of the trench, and it was shot in one shot. But there was a lot of this. Well, the whole film's supposed to be in one shot, isn't it? It's supposed to be sort of in real time.
Maneuvers, no.
But
little cuts.
Yeah, I mean, we did. Did we do a review of this? I can't remember. We did, yeah. Because I remember we were talking about it quite in depth, and it was just a great film, John. It's everything we expected from this type of genre, and it was everything we expected from the actors as well in terms of performance, wasn't it?
Yeah. Stephen, look, we don't get many World War I movies, and this was a great one. Sam Mendes, his grandfather, it was his memoirs that inspired him to make this movie. Kirsty Wilson Cairns is great. She's Scottish, I think she's Glaswegian. Amazing writer. She put the camembert cheese sort of thing in the script. The German soldier, he puts his hand and it goes in. It's got the consistency of camembert cheese. So that's the level of detail went into this. You get Roger Deakins' cinematography wizardry. He won an Oscar for it. An amazing attention to detail, building these sets months in advance, meticulously planning out how long the scene would be so they could get it all in one shot. An amazing technical achievement.
Score as well.
Score was fantastic. Was it Thomas Thomas. No, God, I'm blanking on his name. Guy done Shawshank.
Yeah. Thomas. I can't remember his name. That's terrible. Yeah,
absolutely shocking. He's an amazing composer. I cannot believe it, man. Thomas Newman. I was about to say Newton. Thomas Newman, an amazing score.
As long as I didn't say Anderson.
No. And obviously the performances. George Mackay, I love this guy. I've watched him from Captain Fantastic all the way back. He's an amazing up-and-coming actor. He was great at Schofield, this guy who was forced on this mission with Corporal Blake. It was really his story to get to his brother, in a sense, and sort of avert a disaster. He has to continue this on, and his wake after he sadly dies very early on in the movie. But it was great chemistry between them, and then these the little sort of brief cameo performances that could have maybe buffed another movie. They were so interesting, the likes of Andrew Scott and Colin Firth, and Daniel Mays is in there as well, and there's other performances, Richard Madden and obviously Benedict Cumberbatch. There's so many interesting little side characters. There's someone I'm missing. It's in this bald guy. Jesus Christ, man, I'm missing. He's great. He has a great little cameo. He's in the back of the Jeep.
Yeah, John, I remember when we were... You could look that up if you want while I speak, but I remember when we were doing the review, that was one of the things that you posed to me. Was Mark Strong, that's right. He was great in it as well.
Brilliant.
Very brief, but...
Bits in Glasgow
you did suggest that, down at the Clyde, you did suggest that is a possibility where they could do stories from that time period. And interject. It's possible, John.
It was a great movie, man.
It did make you wonder why they get so many big names, for very small sequences and right at the very end of the film as well. But who knows?
It was a very British movie, and it was very sort of British theatre trained actors that were in there. They just fitted perfectly with it, really.
I loved it, John. But
apart from Andrew, whatever his face
and
is.
it was one of those films you had to see in cinema as well. That's how I was glad that a lot of these films came out at the very beginning of the year here in the UK, and we didn't miss out. Seeing this in streaming would have been okay. I would have accepted that. But I'm so glad we've seen. Well, that's it exactly. And another one, John, that we're going to talk about now, number 2. It's Tenet. This was us return to form. We went back to the cinemas in a very strange fashion, John. I know that you'd saw this film 2 days before both of us went to see it. Unbelievable. This is Tenet, and it's from 2020, of course. Christopher Nolan directed and wrote this, and stars John David Washington, Robert Pattinson, Elizabeth Debicki. Your man, what's his face? Kenneth Branagh. He was an annoying shit in this film, but I loved him. I absolutely loved his performance in this. Really made me angry. I really wanted to punch his head in.
Posey's in there as well. She's great.
Yeah, 7.6 out of 10. Another film, John, from Christopher Nolan that makes you want to think out the box, and he certainly does. And I don't think a lot of people like that because they had to think.
Well, people don't like thinking. They like to have their hands held through every experience these days. They're strange people.
A lot of what do you call it?
Simpletons.
Yeah, well, what's that? What do you call that? It's the terminology for stating the obvious. Since it's sort of cutting corners when you want to tell a story. What's that called? Exposition. Yeah. Well,
there's a lot of exposition in this movie, and a lot of people think it's not handled well. I think it is. It's usually Neil, Robert Pattinson's character, sort of scientific physics major, who is ahead of the curve because he's came from the future to affect events and meet up with John David Washington's protagonist character. He is the sole driver of exposition in this movie, but because the mixing was a little dodgy, certainly the first time I seen it was a little dodgy. Second time it was much better.
That's right, I forgot about that.
People's ability to pick up on the exposition. But I love this movie. It was another technical masterpiece. The way the reverse sequences, a lot of it shot meticulously in reverse. Just classic Nolan, obsession with time, reversal, time in general, all the way back to his early movies. This guy's been doing it, and this was a sort of zenith of that exploration of time. A beautiful, beautiful story, and I really enjoyed that relationship between Neil and the protagonist. The first time they sit down and meet, the score from your man Ludwig Göransson, just a beautiful scene. I'll have thanks for it. You'll have soda water. Thanks, but I prefer Diet Coke. No, you don't. Just little moments like that. The knowing. In a beautifully shot movie, the sequence where they're jumping up onto the building to meet, I think it's Priyanka or something.
John, I think the one that stands out for me is the one, is it in the airport where they get the glimpse? I think it's Robert Pattinson's character gets the glimpse
and
of.
And it's revealed later.
But it was a bit obvious. It was, I kind of, we spoke about that after we came out of the cinema, and I said I kind of
holding the
saw
breath
that
as
coming,
well.
but
I tried that. Let me tell you, it's very hard.
But
so many great moments.
There's
4 or
elements.
5 versions going on.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, John. It's you can see Mementos, obviously.
Yeah.
You know, the two elements from that.
Steve,
you know,
did you ever see that video of Nolan putting in a diagram how that story works? Unbelievable genius.
No, I've not seen that. No.
People are asking him, and if he draws it on a whiteboard, the way the movie flows, just incredible.
Yeah,
unbelievable.
I think, John, like most films like that, when you get sort of down to the nitty gritty of the sort of base of the story, it's a very simple storyline. It's the way it's constructed, much like Pulp Fiction. You know, it's a simple storyline.
Well, he makes it really simple.
Yeah, it just made into different sequences and stuff like that, and different perspectives. But it was a great film.
At different sort of pace and quickness. I'm trying to think of the word.
I think they explained it as well, John. It wasn't bogged down in exposition. That's what I was trying to say. You know, they didn't really. It was really just more that Neil was the sort of technical advisor on the film. You know, when it came to the sort of scientific side of things.
Aaron Taylor-Johnson as well. I was surprised, even though I didn't watch the final trailers.
Yeah.
So when I first went into the theatres, I'm like, Jesus Christ, it's Aaron Taylor-Johnson. And he's great at playing a sort of Cockney commander. Just amazing. That end sequence as well. The building getting brought down, rebuilding,
that was
and then
amazing,
imploding. Just so many great moments. The poignant moment where Neil goes back in, you see the little ribbon, the attention to detail, that speech. This is the beginning of your journey, but I feel it's the end of mine. There's just so many great moments, man. I loved it. It wasn't complex for me. I was invested in it, and you have to be invested in this man's work. You cannot skim through it and expect to understand it. It makes you think, and that's a dying art in modern cinema. So I love Nolan.
Yep, and he made me think. But John, we're going to move on to our number one film of 2020. It did win the Academy Award this year. It's Parasite, as you can see from the graphic.
Ruined the suspense.
That's okay. I was trying to say it as quickly as possible. It's Parasite. But to the Queen. Bong Joon-ho, John, is the man. He's the man that had all the Oscars lined up on the bar. And he was, deserving of the Oscar as well. He wrote, obviously, the film, the story and the screenplay, and stars the likes of Song Kang-ho, Lee Sun-kyung, and Cho Young-jung. Now, that's as far as I'm going to go with the names, John, because my pronunciation for a lot of these fine actors, and they were amazing actors in this film, John. We did the trailer reaction for this. One of the comments that always stood out to me was that I remember you, when we reacted to it, you saying, wow, look at the shift in tone in this trailer, and someone commenting saying, wait till you see the film. And they weren't wrong. It was an amazing turn of events, wasn't it?
Steve, one of the best movies I've seen in the last decade, easily. Song Kang-ho, of course, I think he was in Snowpiercer as well. Very different guy in that. He was playing this sort of crackhead addicted to this drug in Snowpiercer, but a great character in that too. What a performance from him, playing this father, trying to balance things, and just the way the lies weave, and just the satirical look at the class system in Seoul, is it? And obviously Seoul, and obviously South Korea in general. The way that I was speaking about this with someone that commented on one of our videos recently. The way the Koreans just craft their movies, it's different to what we get over here. There's just a level of clinical to the action. There's a level of brilliance to the storytelling, to the way they weave the themes and the satire. It's just amazing, man. And we've looked back through this guy's back catalogue as well. We've watched a lot of his other movies like Snowpiercer, Oakyard and Mother and stuff like that, and he's just a stupendous director. I cannot wait to see what he gives us next. He deserved these 4 Oscars the first time since Walt Disney in the 1950s.
Yeah, amazing. The
way this movie weaves the technical aspects, everything about it, it's just incredible. It stuck with me for a long time. And the way that it explodes in the last 10, 15, 20 minutes, and that ending where you can take your own sort of version of what that letter meant, everything was. Did they buy the house? Did they not buy the house? Did the father ever get out? We see the sort of next version to be locked down there, sort of becoming emaciated, whatever you say. So many good performances in there, and just a great movie on another level to anything this year.
I think it's fair to say as well, John, before anyone comments, it did come out here on the 7th of February 2020. Although the film had been out for about 4 or 5 months everywhere else.
The last country?
Yeah, the last territory, John. I still don't understand why that was the reason. I don't think I'll ever understand why we had to wait so long for this film.
Stephen, it worked because it kept the momentum going for this movie. Usually when a movie releases so early in the year, by award season, Oscars, the buzz is gone. It's lost it. We've seen that with movies over the years. They slowly released it and rolled it out, and the word of mouth just kept going and going, and it really paid off for
John,
the Oscars.
you mentioned Snowpiercer as well, and because of Parasite, it opened our eyes up to a larger a larger genre of films from South Korea and beyond. We are doing our Indian season just now
Odyssey,
here at
yes.
MBE, but Bong Joon-ho for me, I was very ignorant to the fact that this guy was doing these films for the last decade or so, but since Parasite, it really did open our eyes up. We have watched obviously Snowpiercer since then, and really another great film as well. It has that message of a class system in there as well, and a social element to it as well.
More accessible to Western audiences too, because of the likes of Chris Evans and stuff like that.
Plus,
Tilda Swinton.
Yeah.
Ben Kingsley, is it? Is he in that? No, it's not the other guy, isn't it? Little baldy dweeb guy.
Can't remember.
It's not Ben Kingsley anyway, but more accessible.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. But Stephen, this is by far the best movie I've watched this year. One of the best I've seen in a long time on so many levels. Technical story, acting, everything, directing. Just an amazing experience watching this movie. But I'm done.
I'm done and dusty. John Ed Harris was the name.
Ed Harris. No, it was the other guy.
He was a bald guy.
John Hutt.
Oh, John Hutt. Yeah.
But look, he passed away now, John.
Yeah.
Sad. Yeah,
David Spencer was in there as well. I forgot about that.
Yes.
But we're not talking about Snowpiercer. We're talking about Parasite, John.
Stephen, we could talk about Bong Joon-ho movies all night long.
Yeah.
The guy's so good. But look, that's going to round up our top 10 movies of 2020. What's your top 10 movies of 2020? Depending on the territory, the country you're from, it may be quite a bit different, because a lot of these movies just sneaked into 2020 in the United Kingdom. So we get the privilege of speaking about some really good movies. Other people, not so fortunate. They have been saddled with some shite movies in 2020 because they've not released. They've already been in the previous year. But look, what was your maybe top 10, if you can share that down below? What do you make about our choices?
Artemis Fowl.
Yeah, Artemis Fowl. Oh, Christ on a stick. There's some good movies come out this year as well, Stephen. Like the Trial of the Chicago 7 and what was it, Enola Holmes. There's been some really good movies on Netflix and stuff like that. But look, I'm not speaking about that. They didn't make our list. They're honourable mentions. The likes of Mulan as well. I know you've seen it.
Yeah.
I've still not watched that movie.
Yeah, and Wonder Woman 1984 we don't get.
We can't
so
watch
we can't
that
even talk
legally.
about that. John, that may not be actually, judging by feedback so far, but that may be what we're talking about this time next year in our 2021 films.
Yes, it may very well be. I hope we're talking about June and stuff like that next year.
Yeah.
God given, or God willing, I should say. But look, man, that's going to round it up. You can share below if you've got anything to say. You can also like the video if you've enjoyed it, and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content like this in the future, and you'll duly get it. But look, guys, until then, bye.